Oh man, what a great start to the new year. This is a great way to get 2025 started. So a few days ago, I made a really big mistake and I sanded through the paint on the hood of my beloved 95 Toyota Supra. Today, we are gonna fix that mistake. Now, unfortunately, that involves removing the hood, completely sanding down the hood, and repainting the entire hood. You cannot just paint one little section. Whole thing needs to be repainted, so it is perfect, just like the rest of this beautiful car. Now, obviously, looking back, there was a much better way of going about filling the rock chips. What I did was wet sand and polish the entire hood, and then I filled the rock chips. The reason I did it that way, and it makes no sense, but I did it that way because at first I thought, I don't really care about the rock chips, they're not gonna bug me, but as soon as the rest of the hood was in perfect condition, I decided that they bugged me enough to try and fix. And that is when this happened. I filled that rock chip, went ahead and started wet sanding down the touch-up paint and burned through. So yeah, lesson learned for sure. That was a big, costly lesson that I will never forget. All right, we got the hood removed. In order to get this thing sanded down and ready for paint, we're gonna be using a gray Scotch-Brite pad and 800 grit on the DA, dry sanding, not wet. Now here's the deal. We don't need to apply color or base coat to the entire hood. We need to just apply base coat to our burn through section. So the goal is to not burn through any other edges. So I will be sanding all the flat areas, but when it comes to when we have high points and ridges like this, I'm gonna avoid that with the DA and just hit that with the scuff pad, just so we don't burn through and have to apply base coat to the entire hood. When it comes to clear, the whole entire thing does need to be cleared. But base coat, we're just gonna hit our affected areas here, here, here. All right guys, this thing is ready for paint. I went ahead and masked off the bottom of the hood just so we can spray and blow paint on this edge so we don't have any dry edges. But I wanted to avoid getting paint on the underside because we have all the factory labels, and I wanted the underside, of course, to match the engine bay. Let's give this thing one final cleaning with wax and grease remover. Go ahead and spray out our base coat right up in this area here. Apply the clear and we'll be done. All right, so here's the deal. I'm waiting on the paint to show up. I didn't have any black. The color code for this is 202 from Toyota. It's literally just a straight black, no metallic, no pearl, anything like that. So while we're waiting on the paint to show up, I'm actually gonna go drop the Supra off at the PDR shop. You guys may have seen in the polishing video, but there's a few dings in this quarter panel here, all really, really small. And there's one tiny ding on this door. I usually have cars PDR'd before polishing, but they couldn't get it in for a while. Today is the day though, so I'm gonna go ahead and drop this thing off. And here in a few hours, all these dings. There's a good one right there. You guys see that one up there? And then this one back here, I caused my street bike leaned into this on accident and put that dent in the quarter. So here in a few hours, no more dents on the Supra. We'll have a freshly painted hood, and this thing will be looking mint. Supra is now dropped off at the PDR shop. There was actually a total of 10 dings that need to be pulled. Came back, and our paint is here. So I bought a half of a pint, which is a quarter quart. This is way more than enough. I probably could have got away with like 1 ounce of paint. All we're spraying is this area here. If we take a look at the color, this is literally just black. There's no pearl, there's no metallic, black as black can be. All right, we got our black paint mixed up, loaded up in the gun. Now here's the deal, and let's hope I don't regret this. I am going to be painting this hood outside. Today is nice enough, it's not raining, and it's barely warm enough to go ahead and pull the hood outside, spray it, pull it back in, let it dry, do that type of thing. I don't, of course, have a paint booth here to mask off the entire shop and pull out all the cars, especially with the NSX up on the lift and all torn apart. That would be a massive headache. Now I was a little bit worried that this was gonna happen. So here we have our base coat sprayed down, and because I did not prime that section, you can see a ring around where the sand through was. So we have 2 options. Number 1, sand it back down, prime it. Number 2, try to use our base coat as a primer. And if we can get it to look good without the clear coat, it's gonna look just fine with clear coat. So let's go ahead and sand that out with maybe 800 or 1000 grit and see if we can get that to look nice. After a few coats and wet sanding, I finally got it looking perfect. I'm gonna let the last coat of paint we just applied dry, and then we can clear coat the hood and see how it turns out. Well guys, after letting it completely dry, you can still see the ring. So I'm left with a hard decision. We have 2 options. Go ahead and clear it, and hopefully we get enough clear on there to where we can wet sand it and make it look good, or we can just take a step back and do it right. Let that completely dry, sand it down, spray a little bit of, just a tiny bit of primer in that area, let it dry, wet sand it, base clear, and I know in that instance, if we go that route, that it's gonna look perfect. If it was any other car, I probably would just hope for the best and clear it now and deal with it later, but it's a Supra. I'm gonna do it right, and I'm gonna primer it. Primer is laid out. I'm gonna give this a good solid at least 48 hours just so it can shrink up, fully cure before we sand it. If we sand it too early, there's a possibility that it could shrink underneath the paint, and then that ring will reappear later on down the road. We don't want that. Let's be patient. Now in other news, the car is back from PDR. He found quite a few more dents and dings than I had even seen before. There's about 14 total. So now this thing is immaculate. The majority of the dents were right over here on this quarter panel. That's pretty much where all of the dents were. So now we can go ahead and reassemble the interior, as I did have to pull a lot of this out so the PDR shop could access the quarter panels and the doors. Hello guys, it's a few days later. Our primer is fully cured up, ready to be sanded. I'm gonna sand it down with 400 grit and then finish it off with 800. And then if it all looks good, we can go ahead and paint. The black stuff I just sprayed on there, that is called guide coat. And it does exactly what it sounds like. It guides you when you're sanding. We don't wanna sand too much. We don't wanna not sand enough. So any low areas will have the black guide coat still in it, meaning we need to sand more. The amount of times that I have painted straight over primer is endless, but today it's not liking it. So here's what we need to do. This hood is just fighting me, man. We need to sand that down. I'm gonna go ahead and sand it down with 400. And then I went and picked up some black sealer. I didn't have any black here. I had white and gray. I didn't have any black, so I went and bought black sealer. We're gonna seal that whole entire section on the hood, let that fully dry and cure, and then go ahead and paint it. If it doesn't like that, I don't know. Fully sanded down and feathered it out. If this thing does not take the sealer, this whole thing will probably have to be sanded down, sealed, based, cleared, and then done. Kind of start from scratch, but I think this should work. Well, sometimes all you can do is just sand it all the way back down and start from scratch. So I sanded off everything, including the primer that I laid down. That is the factory primer right there. So we're gonna go ahead and reprime this thing. I don't know what I did wrong. I'm not that new to painting, so I feel like I should know what I did wrong. Only thing I can think of is that the primer was laid on too thick and did not have enough time to dry. Alrighty boys, let's do it. Guide coat, sand with 400, finish with 800, sealer, base, clear. That's the plan. Let's hope this goes to plan. So here's the hood in base coat with no issues whatsoever. Now here's the funny thing. I didn't change a single thing or a single method. I redid exactly what I did previously. And as you can see, there is not a single issue. So this thing is ready for clear coat. Like I said, I was gonna clear it outside, but if we take a look outside, it is now snowing. So I moved all the cars out of the shop and we're gonna be spraying the clear right over here. Well guys, hood is cleared. 3 nice thick coats of clear because as you can see, this thing got covered in dirt. What a joke. What a freaking mess, man. So here's the problem. I sprayed it, everything was going good, and then I wanted to clear out the shop and I didn't think this through, but when I opened the door, obviously the door goes like this and it's over the hood. The door ain't clean. The non-clean door lands on the hood. You win some, you lose some. I've sprayed a few things at the shop before and they've turned out good. It seems like everything I paint outside turns out phenomenal, but today did not work out. I took a gamble, I took a risk, I was willing to take it. I think it can be fixed. I'm gonna let it cure for a few days and try my hand at wet sanding and polishing this hood. What a joke, but hey, it is what it is. You live and you learn. I've learned this lesson before, but I guess I'll learn it again. Don't rush things and be patient when it comes to painting and do it right. I should have waited to rent the booth. I must say, other than the dirt that landed on it, everything else is beautiful. Our repair looks perfect. You can't ever tell what we did. The texture of it is phenomenal, but none of that really matters when it's got thousands of pieces of dirt.